It's not only a delight for me to be able to moderate tonight's event, but I also get to reveal the book picks for the 100% Certainty Project. Each year we select books to promote to the public to read. And of course, hope for the best, plan for the rest is our book choice for this particular year. So you've heard it first, that this book is one of our 100% Certainty book picks. So not only should you read it in the first place, because it's a fantastic book, but it's also part of our project. So just to introduce our two guests, I'll read their official bios. Dr. Sammy Winemaker is a palliative care physician who cares for patients with serious illness and their families in the home. In fact, she's been a home visiting physician for maybe longer than you want me to mention,
yes,
Sammy? Okay.
Right.
She's an associate clinical professor at McMaster University in the Department of Family Medicine, Division of Palliative Care. She's won numerous awards for her leadership and palliative care education of healthcare professionals. Welcome, Sammy.
Thank you.
And Dr. Hsien Seow is the Canada Research Chair in Palliative Care and Health Systems Innovation. He's a professor in the Department of Oncology at McMaster University. He publishes healthcare research focused on improving the patient and family experience for those facing serious illness. You may not realize, but Hsien is actually a nationally recognized expert. He is one of our country's leading researchers in this topic. So we're privileged to have him with us and to share his wisdom with us. And something I did not know about Hsien is that he's actually an author prior to this book. He actually is the co-author of another book called The Tao of Innovation, 9 Questions Every Innovator Must Answer.
Yeah, I think then if I ever get to publish another one, it's got to have a number in it, clearly, yeah. It's going down, so it'll be the one thing you need to know next.
So welcome, Hsien and Sammy.
Thank you, Alan.
So we have some time to talk a little bit about...
I'm trying to relax.
Yeah, relax. We're amongst friends, 75 of our closest friends. So it's a time that you can just relax. Everyone is just so interested and ready to hear a little bit about how you've come to this point. And how many of you are familiar with Sammy and Hsien's podcast? Yeah? Okay, all right. So for those of you who are not familiar, not only are Sammy and Hsien these fantastic authors, but they actually have this absolutely fantastic podcast called The Waiting Room Revolution. So maybe we could start by just talking a bit about The Waiting Room Revolution, how that all came to be, and help us learn a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, do you want the truth or the cleaned up version?
Let's go for the real truth.
Well, Hsien and I always wanted to write, and we wanted to write a book from way back when. And long story short, which means it's going to be long, right? No, it takes a long time to write things. So Hsien said, Sammy, you talk a lot, actually. So why don't we just press record and the two of us will talk and we'll, maybe if we talk it out, then you won't feel like you have to write it out. And one thing led to another, and it was Hsien and his team's idea, while we're talking it out, why don't we just start a podcast? Not knowing anything about a podcast. I had never listened to one. Hsien had never listened to one. So we didn't even know what it was, but it became the fastest way for us to get this information out to the public. And so it helped us to formulate our ideas by talking it out, but also we didn't have to wait for publication and editing and this and that. Anyone here in the audience can just record themselves and start a podcast. It's that easy. He's shaking his head because he does all the work, and I think it's so easy, but...
Yeah, and you may be surprised to learn the best acoustics are in your closet. So we were both in our closets during COVID recording because of your clothes absorb all the sound. But season 1 was us with the 7 keys, and actually the 7 keys that we talk about in season 1 is the inspiration for this book. And we didn't know who would listen, and we really tried to use it as a vehicle to connect with the world, to hear our ideas. And lo and behold, right away, week after week, we dropped episodes, and people were listening and writing us.
Oh, he says dropped. We had to learn that.
Notice he knows the techie terms now.
You don't just put out. You have to drop an episode. That's cool lingo.
That's a lingo.
Yeah, but we are now in season 7. We just started season 7. So season 1 is the most popular. We have over 80,000 downloads. We're listened to in 82 countries. We're in the top 1.5% of global podcasts. So there are people who are, thank you. It's listeners like yourselves, but I think they really appreciate, we interview guests like Elizabeth Doherty in the room. There's lots of amazing guests from all over the world, really to start the conversation of how can we make this whole experience of being sick, whether you're a patient, the family, or the community, what can we do to make it better? That's really what we sought to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And share with us how you came up with the name, the Waiting Room Revolution.
Who do we owe that to, really?
Yeah, Kayla in the audience, one of my
right
team members right here.
Kayla.
You know, the idea is really about, we knew we wanted to change things, and we have focused so much on educating clinicians. That's what we've been doing our research on for many years and still do. But we realized we missed the opportunity to educate the public, patients and families, with the same information who are, the public today is just as astute, maybe even more astute, and more motivated to find these answers. And we knew we wanted a revolution. It wasn't only a palliative care revolution, but it was a revolution in the waiting rooms, where we wanted patients and families to be activated and not be scared.
Physically, I don't know, I won't say show your hands if you've ever waited in a waiting room, because that's not fair. That's personal information. But I have, and it's scary. I mean, you're in the waiting room. There's nothing like a waiting room in a doctor's office or in a hospital to make you feel powerless. It looks scary, it feels scary. You're waiting for test results or what the doctor or the nurse is going to say, and it's a powerless feeling sitting there. And metaphorically, people also are waiting when they have a serious illness for what's next. What's around the corner? What's going to happen? Why am I feeling this way? What am I thinking about? So it is physically and metaphorically a place of discomfort. And so we wanted to revolutionize it by giving people the skills, the mindset, to be able to feel more empowered, more activated, more respectfully assertive in their own illness journey.
And I think when people have serious illness, they don't realize how much time is spent actually in waiting rooms and waiting. So one of the ways that you can optimize your use of time is by thinking about some of these concepts and ideas that you're going to help us understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I understand that then the book came about because you had a particular patient encounter that kind of stimulated your desire to make a book?
Yeah. So this was a particular person who was diagnosed with a serious lung condition. And this lung condition had an average life expectancy of about 5 years, let's say. And so he had lots of good medical teams involved and, brilliant medical care. But he got to a point in his illness where he was presented with the opportunity to potentially have a lung transplant. And so he was hoping for a lung transplant. And then at the 11th hour, there was a decision that he wouldn't be eligible for one. And so all hope was squashed, and it felt to him like the carpet had been ripped from beneath him. And I met him as a palliative care physician. I was asked to do a consultation. And so it became very clear to me that he represented almost every single one of my patients and their families who journey through an illness, very busy in the weeds and the day-to-day treatments and decision making, but really didn't have an overarching roadmap to what that illness was going to look like and what to expect. And so when he got to that point where none of the teams really gave him that big roadmap, he felt his only option at that point was to request assisted dying. And with no judgment on that request, it just demonstrated to me that this is a crisis. It's a crisis because he didn't realize, and nor did the healthcare teams realize, that there was a way they could have helped him understand his illness, realize that his breathlessness could have been treated along the entire way, that a lung transplant wasn't the only way to improve his quality of life. And so he had held on to this hope for a transplant, and it made him stuck without being able to explore what would my natural life look like if I didn't have a lung transplant. And he was led to believe that he would either suffocate to death or get a lung transplant. So I had very little time to convince him that we could help him have quality of life and, all the things we do when we do a palliative care consult. And unfortunately, there wasn't enough time to work with him. And he went ahead and had his assisted death, which was right for him. But it just made me reflect on all the people that I meet who don't know what they don't know. And I just felt that that's not fair, that people have a right, families have a right to know about every single chapter of their illness, feel more prepared, spend their time the way they want to spend it, and not be so terrified the whole way.
And then, Sammy, you joined forces with Hsien.
Thank goodness. Yeah, because I talk a lot, and that's about all I do, and he gets things done. Yeah. Yeah.
We know the secret behind how this book actually came to be.
Yeah.
So you joined forces, and it's an interesting pair that you make because you...
Really interesting.
Really interesting for many reasons, yeah. Partly because you, Sammy, bring all sorts of clinical expertise. You have many, many thousands of patient encounters under your belt. You've spoken to thousands of patients and families over your career. And Hsien brought this very high quality research and information that is solid, evidence-based, proven by research. And it's a nice marriage between the clinical and the research academic that you were able to bring together.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I feel like the book wrote us, it sort of led us. We had thought it'd be this or that, but in the end, it really became like a guidebook, and we were talking directly to patients. It's sort of like if you had a doctor in your family, they could guide you through what you needed to know, and not just at the end where people find these amazing doctors who provide palliative care, which is just good care, which is whole person care. We want that from the beginning. And so it took us a while to understand how to break down what we did at the end. To improve the end, we had to improve the beginning. And what could we offer that patients and families could do, really the actions that they could take so that they could leach out this thing called the palliative approach without the labels. That you could leach out just good care by asking the right questions and getting informed and getting the big picture. And that's what the book is really about. It's a guidebook for patients and families. It's an action plan. It really we put in those stories to illustrate the points, but we almost don't talk about ourselves very much at all. And we almost
I wanted
don't.
To.
Yeah, that was draft one. But we also actually don't talk about death and dying all that much, because what we are talking about is how to get good care, how to be a patient. Mm-hmm. And we are patients for a lot longer than we are at end of life. That's just one chapter of the whole journey.
Mm-hmm. And when Debbie said that's why everyone in this room should have a copy of this book, every household, because it's not just about death and dying, it's any major condition or illness these sorts of ideas are going to be helpful to people. Yeah.
Well, we were worried that because I'm a palliative care doctor and Hsien is a palliative care researcher, that people would think it was a book about death and dying. But it's not. It is about living. It is about living your best life while you're facing a progressive life-limiting illness. It's being the best version of you, all things considered. And considering that, all of us in this room are eventually going to get there because only 10% of people die suddenly from lightning or a car accident, which has unfortunately happened tonight, I hear. 90% of people will get something in their life, something serious that will begin this journey. Or you'll have lots of little things and be lucky enough to get old, but become more frail at some point. So we're all going to get there at some point. And so too many people have said to us, at the end, I wish I would have known. Had anyone ever told me, I would have done things differently. I would have spent my time differently. I would have made different decisions. And so you hear that thousands of times and you suddenly think, okay, we've got a big problem here. We must do something about it. So this was our call to action, which I didn't think when I was younger, and nor did Hsien, that we would end up on a stage like this with a book like this. But when you have a passion and you feel the advocacy boiling in your blood, it just propels you in many different ways. And I think both of us would say pinch us because, we're just so happy to have something tangible. Not everyone's going to listen to a podcast or go on social media and check us out. But a book is like, when we got them in the box and opened them up, it's such an incredible feeling just to know that it's accessible to people. So we're just trying to socialize the world as much as we can in the many ways that we've tried. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Hsien so much for his partnership and his team, because honestly, this would not have happened without them. So.
We'll give a hand to the team behind this. So maybe you could socialize us now to the book itself in terms of how it's set up. There are 7 keys to navigating a life-changing diagnosis, but maybe you could just give us a general sense of the structure of the book and what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah, so we try to tell stories, and we talk about, we had to think of why is it the case that the common story we hear is that, the not so great one. And it's like you got to be lucky to get a good death or a good story. And so there are these assumptions that we make, like doctor knows best, or, there's no crystal ball. And so we had to really think and call those out. And so every chapter starts out with the assumption that people make of the system, and we tell them the reality. And then now that you know the reality, the key is the antidote of how you can take advantage of that to make the best use of it. And we tell stories of when it works well and when it doesn't work well. And for every key, and they're listed here, we give you 3 action steps of how you can apply it so that today, you can implement that into your life. You don't have to wait till some point where they say, you're palliative or what have you. You could think about whether this makes sense to you, and you could ask your doctor or ask your team, your inner crew around you, how it works. So really every key, we explain it, and we give 3 action steps, and that's really the foundation of the 7 keys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of practical advice and some exercises in the book to help walk people through some of these keys and steps.
I've been told it's an easy read.
Yes.
So you should know that. It's not particular. Oh, yes? Is it an easy read? Yeah? Okay.
And I think maybe we can just walk you first the first 3 keys, but what we did is we actually co-designed these. We tested these out with providers, patients, and families who gave us feedback of whether these concepts made sense, and they really said these metaphors were really helpful. So the 7 keys are really 7 metaphors of how you should think about how you approach things. So the first one is called Walk Two Roads, which is really hoping for the best and planning for the rest, which became the title of our book because people said that was the most important one. But it is this idea of walking the road of hoping that, of all the best outcomes, but planning not for the worst, but planning for some of the things that are coming up and what is likely to come up for you given your situation. And thinking about that, and that planning ahead does not betray being able to be hopeful. They actually can coexist. So that was our first metaphor, and it is actually the most common one that people can use and say to their family and their inner crew, but also to their clinicians, to invite them to use the same language that isn't scary. Because hoping for the best and planning for the rest is not about planning for death. It's about preparing for the journey you're on.
Most people just want to hope. They hope, 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 and that can turn into toxic positivity, where everyone around you is just cheerleading. Oh, don't talk like that. Don't say that. Stiff upper lip. Sorry, pull this back.
Yeah, pull it out a little bit.
Okay, pull it out. I'll do that. Okay, hi. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. So what can happen naturally is people just take on this cheerleading role. And sometimes for the patient, it can feel silencing. And everyone has good intention to try to be positive and help the person fight this. But then a person starts wondering, I wish someone would just help me think of the what ifs. Okay, that's all great, you want me to be positive, but what if this doesn't work? Or what if this happens? So walking two roads really means you can do both of those things at the same time. You can hope and plan, you can hope and get realistic information about your illness, and it doesn't betray your hope. You can do both at the same time, where hope stays high right until the end, because it's matched with the reality of the illness. That's the safest way to go through an illness journey, instead of just being hopeful and getting stuck in a wish that isn't realistic.
And while that's kind of listed as the first key, in some ways it's the underpinning of all of the ways that people might get through the experience of a serious illness.
It's about making sure you have realistic, honest, truthful, factual information about your illness, that it's not forced on you, but that you have the language to request it. You have the right as people to more information than you know. And so we're trying to empower people to be able to get that information from the beginning, in the middle, and as things move along. It is the most important concept, because we know people do better when they have information, for better or worse. Not just positive information, but any information. There is nothing worse than being suspended in a twilight zone. So that's what it's really about.
And people are worried that when they hear less than positive things, that it's going to cause depression, anxiety, etc. But Hsien, there is research that proves otherwise.
Yeah, there's lots of research that that shows that it's being in the twilight zone, or without sort of not knowing the answer to something, actually leads to more anxiety and depression, because people think the worst. When they get information, if it's bad, not what you expected, there are natural stages of dealing with that. It's not, there could be sadness, but as we know, denying our emotions and sort of avoiding them does not make them go away. We need to lean into them and deal with them, and people actually, what we learned is hope evolves. People are more resilient. They're able to change what they're hoping for when it's matched to the reality of their illness.
Yeah, it's okay for people to cry, to be upset, to be frustrated, to be angry. It doesn't mean we should avoid offering information, because people can move through that and then adjust and then move on. And so it's really important.
Yeah.
Your second key is called, one of the nice things about this book is they have these cool names for all these keys. So the second key is called Zoom Out. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, sure. So zoom out is the opposite of zoom in. Can you believe it? Okay. So what does that mean? Okay, I mentioned it before, that when people have a serious illness, it gets very busy. And you get on this conveyor belt of healthcare, and you have appointments, and you have tests, and you have results, and you have, see the doctor and the nurse, and you get into the weeds or the rabbit holes or the trees of the illness. And that's where people tend to be comfortable, because it seems like we can fix those things. But it's the big picture of the illness that is the roadmap. And when you get really busy in the day-to-day, you can lose sight of the natural history of this illness, because every serious illness is the first one maybe for the person, but billions of people have had that illness before. And so we know what those illnesses look like. If you are diagnosed with something like Parkinson's, we know what Parkinson's looks like over time. We know what it looks like in the beginning, the middle, and the end. We know what the bus stops are, what the milestones are, what the big decision points are. And that is the big picture of the illness. And people have a right to that information. However, in the busyness of the illness, that stuff gets forgotten. And we start just talking about what the test results are. I'm going to start you on this medication. How's this medication going? And then suddenly we lose the forest for the trees. And so zooming out is a skill. Patients and families, how to pull themselves out of the weeds, pull the healthcare providers out of the weeds, and ask the big questions so that you have a sense of where you're at in your illness, where you're going in your illness. And so that's zooming out.
Yeah.
It's actually, in every single home I go into, I always start with, let's review where you've been in your journey, where you're at in your journey, and would you like to talk about where you're going in your journey? Does your mind ever wander into the future? And so it just provides like this rainbow, let's just say, of this overarching roadmap. And people will say, no one's ever offered that to me before. I actually didn't realize that's where I'm at in my illness. And I'm thinking, but you've made lots of decisions about treatments and things like that. And so I get disappointed that those treatment decisions weren't made in the context of this scaffolding. Yeah. We're missing the scaffolding.
Yeah, in other words, I think people are often afraid of the prognosis, like the timeline, how much time do I have? But most people want the storyline, the beginning, middle, late, and end stage. And so that storyline is something we, clinicians do have. And when she said we know, she meant she and her clinician colleagues, but the public doesn't know. And so we need to know how to ask for that. And zooming out is one way. Help me understand, am I in the beginning, middle, late, or end stage? And what can I expect in each of these stages? What decisions do I need to make so that my family and people around me can prepare and we're not caught off guard and we have the right equipment and we can reach out to organizations like Cancer Assistance Program early to provide equipment and support and for not just the patient, but the families themselves, and not wait until the end when they're overwhelmed to start going, well, who can help me?
So I'm walking 2 roads, I'm zooming out, I know this big picture, and then I'm going to try and know my style in key number 3.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You want me to? Okay.
Oh,
sure. Know your style. I'll try to do it quickly because we can go on and on. But it is the idea. This is why we have a podcast, and we do editing. So it's
yeah.
And I always get to re-record my part, so that's why I sound so good. That's it's a little secret. But the know your style is all. It's just the idea that we think that when you have, the illness is in charge, and whatever illness you have, that is what's going to determine your story, the cancer story, the dementia story. But actually, you yourself and your personality and how you have lived your life has a huge impact on the way the story is going to go. And in fact, those around you's personalities and their style too. So the combination of that. But so we talk about know your style as just being aware that how you are as a person, how you have faced challenges in your past, how you deal with different issues is going to play out. In fact, it's going to be magnified, amplified most likely when you are in your condition. And you should know that and use that to your advantage. Match yourself up. If you're not an organized person, match yourself up with someone who is. If you are a highly organized person and want to control everything, then, no, I'm looking at myself too. Then you might want to match yourself up with someone who knows how to have fun and can remind you to, smell the roses. So like this, and don't be surprised. So that people are who they are, and it gets more. So there's no sense in getting frustrated that, if it takes a long time to make decisions, that's going to play out. And if you're in the family around that, you've got to think, that's their style, so what can we do to support them? Mm-hmm. Rather than spend your time being like, now you should really change. Don't you see, now is the time to change. Mm-hmm. So that's know your style.
And knowing your style then segues very naturally to the fourth key, customize your order.
Oh, do you have them written here?
Yeah. Oh, no, I have them in my head.
Oh, it's behind. Oh, I didn't know. I was thinking, wow, you did read the book, didn't you?
I did my homework.
Okay, customize your order is about knowing what's most important to you, and the things that you wouldn't trade off and the things that you would trade off. And knowing that so well that any time you are faced with a decision, that you haul those out and say, how will this decision marry with my most important values in my life? And you use it almost like a terms of reference to help you. So if, for example, I value being at home, being with my family, being able to talk a lot, and I'm presented with a decision, I can say to myself, okay, how is this decision going to impact the fact that I want to be with my family, be at home, maintain my independence, be a control freak, no one's laughing. Anyway, so know your style and customize your order are really about knowing yourself and being able to use that as your superpower to make decisions and to anticipate how you're going to do and how the people in your life are going to do. And it's about knowing that in the healthcare system, the healthcare system likes efficiency, and they've done lots of research on lots of things, and there's something called standard of care. So it's the best way forward for most of the people, but it might not be the best thing for Alan Taniguchi or Sammy Winemaker or Hsien Seow. So it's about being able to nip and tuck and hem and sew and patch your own illness journey, given that you can't ask for everything, you can't, have carte blanche, but you can nip and tuck things. And so we teach people how to create a bespoke.
Yeah, bespoke.
It's a new word for me.
Yeah.
Has anyone heard of that word? Oh, only a few, so you wouldn't have known I mispronounced it. But anyway, so a tailored or a personalized, a concierge type illness experience, because you know your style, you know your values, you know what you wouldn't trade off, and now I can face my illness and make decisions that represent me and my family, not the doctor, not the healthcare system, and at the end, I'm still gonna be me. I'm still gonna feel like me no matter what.
And as you do that, you're going to then expect ripple effects in key number 5.
So yes, you're getting the whole preview. So yeah, ripple effects is about, it's really calling out to the caregivers, the inner crew, that, the patient is the star of the illness, but everyone around them is the supporting actors and are critical to making it happen. And so, we talk about knowing the job description. Are you thinking about it? Are you accepting it? And then planning ahead. If the primary caregiver's name is on every task, that's high risk of burning out. So where can you get supports? And that's exactly, again, a nice call out to resources in your community, friends, friends and family, the other people, and what their roles can be, and reaching out to programs like Cancer Assist Program to see who can fill in and provide me support so that I'm not burning out. So ripple effects is just recognizing that it is not nobody gets the journey and does it alone. That everyone around them has
team sport.
Yeah, it's a team sport, has a parallel illness journey.
And then you invite people through this illness trajectory to connect dots and invite themselves to better care.
Long story short. Just kidding. Okay, so invite yourself and connect the dots. So those two keys are about, so again, all of these keys might not seem like rocket science, but what we've done is we're pulling all of these themes from the end of life, repositioning them upstream with different language and a different vibe, so that you don't end up like the things we see. So connect the dots is calling out right from the beginning that, heads up, there is no fairy navigator that's going to show up at your front door to make sure that everything happens like the concierge in the hotel, or Hsien when we travel. He does everything. But no one is going to show up. So you as a patient and family need to be aware that you're going to be a big part of managing your serious illness and take on different roles, almost like the CEO and the manager, and then there's the caregiver and all these roles that people don't know about. So we call them out at the beginning so people can get ready to do those things and not wait till the end and say, I wish I had kept those notes from the doctor, or I can't remember the date that I had that CAT scan, or when was it that I did this or that. So it's helping people stay organized, because who needs to feel like they're a mess? And then invite yourself is really about making sure that you know that whatever is on your mind is fair game, that forget about being in the back seat of your illness journey. You got to move to the front and co-pilot with the healthcare system. That it's fair game to ask questions. Often in the busyness of healthcare, people will assume if you don't ask, you don't have questions. And then the patients and families think, well, if they don't give me the information, if I wasn't asked, then there's nothing more to know. And so we have this like vortex in the middle. So invite yourself is really about finding your voice, asking questions, and the more information you seek, the better grounded you'll be.
And these 7 keys are very practical, but what I found when I read the book is that the book itself helps you deeply understand what these steps and keys are all about. There are patient stories, there are some suggested exercises, there are some questions that you can think about to help you understand these keys. And I would say that by reading that, it really is inspiring. It's empowering to the reader, to the individual with these serious illnesses. So I encourage you all to get the book, read the book. I was trying to come up with like an 8th summary key. So how about this? Something like be brave and change how you behave.
Yeah.
How's that?
I love that.
Yeah?
Oh,
all right.
You want in on it.
I want in on this, yeah.
Sure.
But I think what it does do, these keys call us all as patients to have some courage, to think about things that are not always pleasant or easy, but you guide us through the journey in a way that we feel bold, courageous, ready, and prepared.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. I hope that's what it does. But I'll plan for if it doesn't. Just kidding.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to have a chance to get some audience questions. So I'm going to try and open it up to the floor in case someone had a question or comment for Sammy and Hsien.
There's one in the corner there. Hi.
We have a mic runner as well. So, okay, project.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for your passion.
Oh, give her a mic. Say that again. These people didn't hear it. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you so much for your passion and dedication to palliative care. And I'm going to get a little emotional. I wish you were around 23 years ago when I went through a pretty horrible journey. And yeah, so thank you so much for starting it and continuing to strengthen and empower people. I wish I had you around. Also, I just wanted some insight on how you help patients and caregivers navigate through the steps so that everybody is on board, because there's a lot of mental, emotional, and psychological things, not just the healthcare stuff, the appointments, but all that other stuff that you're dealing with, trying to wade through the trees and weeds. And how do you get yourself back on track to move through the steps? Is that too complicated?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have to know that, you know, a lot of emotions, a lot of the feels, it's really normal to have, you know, these types of feelings. And it's not wrong. People can adjust, but they adjust better when they have information. So my experience has been that if emotions and feelings are not attended to, then they percolate and become symptoms. And that's when we're called for a pain crisis, or nausea, or insomnia, or, you know, vomiting, or, you know, whatever it is. So thank you for calling that out, because it is super important. There is a whole emotional layer that's woven into a serious illness. And it is worsened if there's also mystery underneath that, and vagueness, and the feeling like no one's telling you really what's going on, but I'm feeling something different inside. So we're really trying to connect the truth of the illness with the emotions and the experience of the illness, so that people will have normal emotions, but they won't fester and percolate because of some of these layers that exist right now. So that's what I'm hoping. And thank you for sharing with us. And be careful, because we're always looking for people to be on our podcast. And every time someone stands up, I'm like, she needs to be on our podcast and tell her story, and she needs to be. And so Hsien's going to hit me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as we're looking for another question, I mean, I will just say that it is the only way, you know, I don't think we have the perfect answer, but our dream, you know, and it's not really our dream, I think it could be, you know, the collective dream, is that we need a revolution. This book is not just for patients. If your families read this and you're speaking the same language, if healthcare providers invite you to the conversation earlier and you ask questions to provide you this information, it will change the way that we experience things. And it can only happen if every patient, or as many patients as families as possible, start asking to walk two roads, start asking to connect the dots, customizing the order and talking about what's important to them. That is the way we're going to change. It's not going to happen by training all the doctors. We've been doing that for 30 years, 50 years maybe. And there are many great doctors who are changing, but not fast enough. So when we as patients and families come to the system differently, I think that is a chance for hope. And if we do that early, that is going to change the whole trajectory of this story. We can't change the illness, but we can change the experience. That's our hope. That's the revolution.
Oh, I think Elizabeth Doherty is here, and Val Spironello. They're probably cringing at our answer about emotions, because they're emotional experts. So if you have any emotional issues, you just go to these two ladies. Put your hand up. There's Val back there. She's going to cringe. Okay, and Elizabeth.
Other questions or comments?
Is there any research on, like, the percentage of the family who doesn't want to bring up things that aren't positive versus the patient who says, I wish my family would talk about the realities of this? Is one lying more than the other?
That's a really good question. I don't think we know that. Do we know that?
I don't know.
If they don't know it, it means it hasn't been researched. Trust me. But I'll say it's 50-50. I'm not kidding. So you get both. You know, the patient doesn't want to bring it up. The family doesn't want to bring it up because everyone's protecting each other, and a big charade starts happening, like a play, you know. It is the elephant in the room, exactly. So a lot of what we do is try to acknowledge that there is this in the space. And, you know, as scary as an elephant is in a room, once you address it and you bring it down and make it disappear, people feel better. People feel better. That's the crazy thing, that people feel better with any information, like we said, for better or worse. You can move on. Yeah, thank you.
I think this, oh, well.
We have one over here.
Oh, yeah, hi.
Hello, thank you. I had an original question, which was very similar to yours. So a new one to piggyback off of that. I work in hospice, and we had a patient once that didn't want to know what was ahead. And when a doctor came in to tell them what was going on, she actually said that they're there to steal her hope. So how would you navigate that with somebody that doesn't want to know? Perhaps their style is to take it day by day, but how would you help that person plan for the rest?
We do have a fair number of people who decide that they don't want or aren't ready to talk about X, Y, or Z, and that is fair. But I think the point here is that they need to be offered. They need to be invited. They need to be, it needs to be suggested that we have information for you. And if you're interested, we're here for you. It's not something you force people to know. In my practice, I have taken it one step further, and when I ask someone, so tell me, what type of person are you? Are you the kind of person who likes to speak openly, straight up, frankly, without sugar? Like, give me an idea of how you want to communicate with me or receive information. And if someone says to me, oh, well, Dr. Sammy, no thank you, we are not that kind of person, we're just like to be, not knowing those things, then I say, you know what, I am going to meet you wherever you're at. But do you mind if I share with you what my experience is, having cared for thousands of patients and families, some of the pros and cons of just taking it one day at a time? And then I mention what it is. And then I say, but if you still want to take it one day at a time, no problem. Most people say, oh, I think we better know. But that's not the goal, is to force people. But I think we have to understand that these conversations are nuanced to the readiness of where people are at. And so we try to explore that.
Yeah, and sometimes the family wants to know and the patient doesn't. And they also can be offered that information, and it can be two conversations.
Some people have trouble asking for help. I imagine a lot of people. If the caregiver is burned out and their loved one says, I don't want any help, do you have any suggestions for how the caregiver would go about managing that?
Yeah, that's a big concern, because when we go and meet patients, people might not know we're also feeling out their inner crew, the family, the caregivers, and trying to get a sense of how they're doing. And so they are a unit of care. We often say that the patient gets the spotlight, but there are often people right in the shadows that are working really hard, and they're really tired and don't have all the information they need. So it is important for the healthcare system to understand that families are not just lovely chauffeurs that are bringing the patient to the appointments, that they count, and that they're having their own illness experience alongside the person with the diagnosis. So we have to do a better job at that, and invite families to have the same information that we offer to patients so that they feel more grounded, and encourage them to think about who is in their natural environment, what organizations exist to be able to plump them up, and give families an idea of what this illness is going to look like so that they have a fair chance to prepare. And some go as far as ask, how long will I be in this role as a caregiver? And sometimes knowing the prognosis is an important piece for families, because they can say, oh, I can do this then if it's another year or another 5 years. I thought it was going to be 50. So there's a whole pile of information that can help caregivers who are feeling burnt out, and lots of folks in that space. So you just have to declare yourself as being overwhelmed, because the patient will only be as good as their crew is good, and that's the truth.
Yeah, I hope there's some practical tips in the chapter about the ripple effects. We give scripts and ideas, and if both sides read it, they can have hopefully a different conversation. It's usually not a conversation that has. It's a bestowed role, and we're trying to make it highlight how important it is to talk about how it changes. The role changes as the disease changes.
I think we have time for maybe one or two questions.
Okay, full disclosure, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm thinking that the 7 keys are quite personalized, so maybe adaptable to different cultures. We know that cultures across the world have different values and beliefs and ways of coping with death and dying and palliative care. Just wondering if your book actually does consider that, and if it is actually adaptable as I'm thinking it would be, because we know that we have newcomers coming to Canada all the time. Yeah. We want to be able to help serve those clients as well with those unique needs that those clients would be facing coming to a new navigating this healthcare system.
It's a really great question. I mean, we have talked, there were 23 keys at one point and they became 7, and we had to, I don't know if you've been listening to Sammy, but when she talks, she has many metaphors, so we had to hone in on one.
She talks too much, that's what he's saying. That's a metaphor for she talks too much.
But I would say that, these are just our offering of one way to approach it, and it has resonated with people, but it is absolutely, the goal of it is to promote discussion and encourage people to talk about things earlier and not at the end. And so, we aren't able, it hasn't been adapted to different languages or different cultures, but I think what it does is open the doorway for people to bring forward who they are. And it's not just language and culture, but, religion and all the different parts who make us unique. To bring that forward to your story early and not just be a number or a body part. And so I think we talk about how we aren't the best people to let other cultures know how to do this, but we invite them to take this and adapt it and use, we've had this adapted for Indigenous cultures in Australia, where instead of walking 2 roads, they use the metaphor of swimming the current and how it changes, and so they swim. So this doesn't belong to us. The ways to get it belongs to the people. And so we want people to take it and adapt it and use it however it makes sense for them. And they're not steps, they're sort of mindsets that you use however it makes sense. So it's not like
it's not one step at a time.
Yeah.
It is like smushed together. You read the book that has chapters and the steps, the skills, but at the end you just, I'm a new person and I can do this. Yeah. And so it's just, you take it all in and you just think about it, and we're hoping that we raise the roof, and that if enough people, come to the healthcare system with a new vibe, that the healthcare system is finally going to have to change a little faster. So welcome to the revolution. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and that's a great way to invite you to end this conversation today. So the waiting room revolution. There is, just to elaborate, there is a section of the book at the end that acknowledges and recognizes different populations of individuals who might have specific, unique cultural and personal practices. So, okay.
It's just a two-second follow-up. It ties right in. Is there any plan for it to possibly be translated into other languages at any time in the future?
Oui. That's French.
I hope so. I want to just say thank you so much for everyone for coming tonight and supporting us. It is, to Sammy, my co-author, my team, but really it's a dream for us to be able to, put our thoughts out, but that people have received it and used it, and I hope that you take it home and it helps you. But I really want to give a shout out to Cancer Assistance Program, who we partnered with tonight, who does amazing work for the community, and is exactly the kind of organization that we want to spotlight, of finding them early, supporting them, because they do so many things, not just at the end, but all throughout the journey, and all the other partners, Jamie from Epic Books, 100% Certainty Project. So thank you all
And the
for
library.
The library.
And my husband.
Yeah.
Poor guy. This is why, actually, we are writing, because he said one day, you know, I can't listen to this one more time. You have got to tell other people about this. Okay?
Yes, and thank you to the library for this great space and for recording it. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And to our teams who are here, too. And to all of you.
So, and I'd just like to echo again the thanks. The Cancer Assistance Program, if you're not familiar with it, is a hidden jewel in our city. It has such a tremendous, it's been such a tremendous support to so many people over its long history. So a shout out to the Cancer Assistance Program. I think, Sammy and Hsien, that we might have a little bit of time if people are desperate to have you sign a book or two, that we actually have a little bit of time to do that. So help yourself to some dad's cookies. I hear that it's Jamie from Epic Books' favorite thing. And buy some books. Have Sammy and Hsien sign your books. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And let's be part of a revolution.
Thank you.